Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Love and Enlightenment.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good night.
evening.
Okay, let me do my little administrative stuff. Um, just as a quick conversation piece, was there anything that you guys saw in the group today or online on any social media that kind of piqued your interest?
Yep.
Uh,
Very excited about the nomination or the confirmation of the new Supreme Court justice. Very excited. Very saddened that the gentleman from South Carolina, Tim Scott, voted against her today. The only black person that voted no for her no today. Crazy that he's from South Carolina, right? And to us, South Carolina is primarily, well, maybe it's not primarily African American. Maybe I'm just assuming, but anyway, that stood out to me
That's
today for
crazy.
sure.
That is crazy. But yes, I'm happy. That was a momentous
Hmm.
vote. So I am glad about that as well.
Yes, it was exciting to see.
Hmm.
It was very exciting to see today.
We've had a lot of firsts in our times,
Yes, that's true.
you know. I'm
But
sure.
it's sad to say that it's sad that it's still like that, you know?
Yeah, but that just shows you that we haven't grown as much as we thought we had grown. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of fluff going on, but um, these past I don't know how many years have taught us that we still got a long, long, long way to go. Um, Give me
Hmm.
1 second. So anybody else saw anything in the group or online or whatever that they wanted to say something about? I saw you well posting away, Ranchi, reeling
oh,
away, TikToking
well,
away.
Pinky posts me up on a toilet. Ain't have to be nobody business, but Pinky can't share the money.
I know I saw her. I was like, why'd she share that? But
Why not?
she
It was.
obviously
I didn't share it from a private thing. I shared it from a public page. From
It
anyway,
is a
Raji,
public day.
I
It
thought
is
it
a
was the.
public day.
Okay. Well, I thought it was hilarious, and I watch it like 4 times already, and I crack up every time I watch it, and I gonna watch it again before I go to sleep.
You know the amazing thing?
Nobody didn't know it was on
It's
the.
it's it's so much women laughing at this, but it's a woman cussing though.
But
It's a woman breaking down emotionally.
I
because maybe they're laughing because they can relate. Either
Yeah,
they
the
can relate
laughing.
or they know someone that could relate.
Hmm.
Yeah, a
No,
lot of
it's
them.
just how we argue as women and we put in our emotions in it, and then men that respond just as you did.
Like
Yeah.
shutting down.
You know,
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
so that's what
Uh,
makes it so funny. And she just bawling and carried on with all kind of thing, and it was so funny. It was
so
so
sweet.
funny. Thank you for laughter.
Okay.
Yo, what comes? I got y'all.
So
Um,
I want to thank Ranchi, Felicia. Um, I see Shay Marie, but I guarantee to see Imani for joining us tonight, and of course Pinky. Um, we wanted to discuss. Well, I wanted to discuss because I just feel like there's a lot of people having to navigate new relationships um, where children are involved,
Hmm.
or it's a deal breaker, kind of situation for some people. I was telling Pinky that there's a Facebook influencer that I follow, and she is married currently, but when she met her husband, she had 2 children. Um, and she said one of her deal breakers was she did not want a man with any children, which at first, when I heard that, I felt like that was kind of like you coming in with 2, but you don't want him to have any. But her thing was she just really did not want any baby mama drama. And she just felt like She might be lucky to find somebody who doesn't have any issues, but for her, and maybe knowing herself, she decided that she didn't want anybody. And she found someone, and they've had subsequent children. And their relationship is working. But for some people, that is a deal breaker, both men and women, or a deal breaker in terms of the age of the children. But even for myself, when I finally had decided that I wanted to date, I told my kids that I'm ready to go out there and date. Two of my kids were like, go ahead. You need to enjoy life. You need to be happy. My other two were like, why? Like, why you need to date? If you want to go out to dinner, I can go out to dinner with you. Like, what? And I'm just like, what? And it wasn't that they wanted me with their dad. It was a protection thing. In looking at it, I don't think at the time anybody could really verbalize what was going on, but I know from their behavior, it was truly about, is this person going to come into their life or my life and do something, or disrupt the unit. They've known me to be with their dad only for all these years, and then here is somebody else that I'm inviting into my life. Because at first I was like, well, why y'all having an attitude? Like, this don't even make any sense. And to me, it still resonates, and up to now. But I just, I told him I'm going to do what I feel like is best for me, and also feel best. I mean, you don't know how people are going to eventually show up, but it affects you if you have kids, or the person that you meet and they have kids, whether they're small, whether they're adult. It's just something that happens a lot in relationships, and it's not just people over 40. It's also younger people. So what either experiences have you all had, or your feelings when it comes to dating, and children are involved? Raunchy, we'll go with you since you're the guy.
I don't even like that. I don't even like that fact that I gotta go first. I don't want to go first.
You see, you want to
I
I'll
would
go.
rather go last. I would
What
rather go
about
last.
what about what about
Women.
just Ranchi? If you don't want to go first, who would like to go first?
I would go first.
You don't got to put you on the spot like that.
Okay.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
There we go. Shit, you got this shit.
I'll go first. Well, what I'll share is that I'm a product of a blended family. My dad has a total of 7 kids, five from two previous relationships, and then two with my mom. So myself and my brother were the youngest, and so
And
all
and
our
and
life
and he got married at how old?
dang.
He was in his late 30s.
He was in
Okay.
his yeah, he was in his late
I
30s.
saying that for a reason. I saying that
Yeah.
for a
He
reason.
was in his late 30s. My mom was in her early 30s, I would believe. I don't know. Yeah. About that, if we do the math. And my dad came with five previous children, as well as I have to also include my mom had her first daughter, my sister Shayna, who was handicapped, and she died when I was 2. I think Pink will be able to speak more towards that her, because I don't have much memory of her. But we did come, they both came into the relationship and marriage with children. And so I knew all my life being a blended family, and I've had instances where my dad would I'm sorry, where my dad would he would sit us all down, because the oldest one is like y'all, Ariana interrupting. The oldest one is like 11 years older than me, and the youngest one is a year, a month, and a day younger than me. So he would sit us all together. They lived in New York. We would travel to go visit them, and he would sit us all down and say, okay, this is what we're doing this summer. This summer, we're all together. And he would tell the older ones, he was like, this is your brother and this is your sister. And he would make sure that we knew who we are. To this day, we all have a relationship like we came from the same mother and father. But it was because he meant that he was going to sit his children down and have us build that bond together from young. It helped us. He would tell us, like, he will, the older ones, you watch your younger siblings, you watch your younger siblings. If they act out, you get them in check. Younger siblings, if you don't listen to your older siblings, I gonna get you in check, and I gonna get you in check. So we all had a great cohesive relationship to the point now we looking at opening businesses together. But it came from my father sit each and every one of us down and having a relationship. There's a lot of people who I know that have siblings that they don't talk to their siblings. Yeah, they have the same father, but because that father didn't build that bond for those children, they don't have a relationship with their siblings. And that's tough, because I'm open to dating somebody who have children. I have a daughter. I'm open to have somebody who I'm open to be in a relationship with a man who has children that takes care of his children. You know, that's the key. If you ain't gonna take care of your children, what can you really do for me and Ariana?
Exactly. That's
That's a
true.
good point.
That's a good, yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
How about you, Felicia?
Well, I have had two sets of stepchildren. So my ex-husband had two kids, and I had two kids. And those two boys, they were raised with my children. And then when he and I separated, and I decided I was going to go back out there, I had decided I didn't want to be with anybody with children. My kids were adult at that age or at that point, and I just didn't want to have to deal with that again. And a lot of it had to do with the loss, right? Just like my marriage was over, my relationship, I felt like my relationship with my stepson, was kind of over, even though it wasn't. We still keep in touch. I'm a grandmother by him. But you create this bond, and then you get to this point in the relationship, and when it's not your biological children, it puts them in an awkward situation between you and their biological parent. So that was a very difficult situation. And then when my current husband and I started dating, and I realized, oh my God, he has a baby. Like, he has his youngest is 12 right now. And we've been together for 5 years. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. My kids are grown and adult, but I mean, I'm in love with her. She's everything we do is centered around our four kids. We do everything that we have to do within reason, obviously. We call them the three bigs and the one little. As long as the three bigs are doing what they are supposed to do. But again, going back to what Imani said, it's key. One of the things two of the things that attracted me most to Brad when we first started dating was the way that he loved his mother and the way that he loved his children. And I have to say, those are the things that really were like, oh my gosh, he loves his mother and his kids this way. Then this man is everything. I can see beyond all these things. And, he stepped right in with my kids, my adult children, mind you, like it was nothing. Absolutely.
And they were accepting of that.
Well, my son wouldn't have accepted anybody under any circumstance. He was the baby at the time, and he did give some push and pull, but he had no choice but to conform. His stepfather had moved on. His biological father was remarried and had another kid. Like, it would have been foolish for him to not concede.
Right.
But I'm sure in his mind, he would have loved for it to be me and him forever. That's the way he saw it. Oh, it's just going to be me and mommy forever. No.
For real.
But it takes a special kind of person to step parent, to co-parent, to move on. My husband's ex-wife and him don't communicate very well. They co-parent well, but they don't communicate very well. But she would text me or call me about, their daughter before she would call him. So, it takes a special kind of person to be able to do those things, and understanding that the child is most important.
True. And okay, before I go on, okay, Pinky, you want to go ahead?
Well, yeah, Leranchi for this time. But for me, I've never been in the situation, so I'm not very familiar with it. my kids are all grown now, and I just recently started dating. So, I never been in a situation. So, but when I was considering going out to date, my thing was I did not want anyone who was not married and who did not have any kids. And I even turned a guy down because he was never married and he didn't have any kids. And so people would always be like, why is that? But to me, at this age, I felt like, well, if you could not invest in not a human being, and if I didn't see, like, to me was, anyway, I didn't know any better, but in my mind, I wanted to know how you invest in people, because to me, that tells me a lot about the individual. I know the type of person you are based on the relationship you was in before, how the relationship came to an end, and how you would be with your kids and how you treat your kids. That will tell me a lot. So if I had bumped up into a guy who, wasn't a good dad, who had a bunch of baby mamas, all these kind of things, to me, that would give me information and insight into the individual. Today, I still kind of on the bridge with that, not necessarily with the kids, because I met somebody who don't have any kids, and that's perfectly fine, because I could clearly see how they treat other people, how they treat their mom, how they were married, how they treated their wife. So I have insight based on how they show up now in the world. But so the kids, not necessarily. And but that was my take on it. So, it's a lot of angles when we look at this baby mama and baby daddy kind of stuff, because now we live in a different world. And and at this age, you're gonna the majority of you gonna come into relationship with somebody who's had kids. And so for me, if I was to encounter somebody who had kids, I would embrace their kids. And I would hope that they would also embrace mine, even though not hope, but expect them to embrace mine, because my kids are a part of me. Even though they are adults, you still have to acknowledge or respect and know that they are a part of me, and I don't separate from my kids. And when I say separate from my kids, I don't live with my kids, and they're adults and they have their own separate lives. They do want me to date, and they want me to be. We don't have a codependent relationship where they don't want me to move on, or I don't want them to move on. We all want to be in healthy relationships. They want that for me just as much as I want that for them. So when I say my kids come along with the package, I mean that's my family. I don't separate from my kids. That might sound a little complicated, but that's who I am. I'm a mom, and that is a part of who I am. So that comes with the package. So to ignore or to not acknowledge my children, I cannot be in a relationship with somebody like that, because then you are not acknowledging a part of me. And that's a part of me I'm not willing to release for anyone. But I watched a video today, and it was talking about don't date women who have kids, because if a woman has unconditional love for her kids, then she don't have the heart or the capacity to love a man like that, right? And I find that to be very interesting. And I was like, that's interesting. And maybe so. I don't know. I can't speak for other people. But to me, a person who have unconditional love for their kids shows me the capacity a woman or a man, because if it's a man who have unconditional for his children, it shows me his openness and his capacity to love another person. So I didn't resonate with that as any truth, but I don't know if this is a factor out there, because I really never really dug deep into all of this stuff. So I don't know.
Just before Ranchi, Sherry Ann, she said, that's on YouTube. She said, not everyone wants children.
Exactly. And so, yeah. But again, at this age, my mind at the time, and that was a couple years ago, and marriage, my thing was, and I asked the guy, I was like, well, why you never been married and why you don't have any kids, Anyway, you live and you learn, you grow up, you become older and wiser, I hope, with life and experiences.
Mhm.
But still, if I was to meet somebody who was never married and never had any kids, today I would still probably question the relationship. Again, what is your capacity to open and share your life with another person is what I am seeking to find. Right? So that's what I'm seeking to find. And again, I understand people based on how they've shown up in the world, knowing that people make mistakes, people change, people grow, all of that. But still, a person history tells me a lot about who they are. So that's just me.
Mhm.
Okay.
Nice, 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 nice.
What's so nice about that, Ranchi?
Like it, man. I like it. Like a viewpoint. Okay, we're ranching now. We could start by blended families. Okay, for me, we're potential persons having children going into relationships. I don't feel you're going into the relationship for the child. Your connection is with a woman, a man, however the connection going. Your connection is with that person. That person has a child. That child is a human being. So automatically, you should show respect for that individual, right? I love you. You love your child. Your child is yours forever.
Right.
So I have to accept that. So I have to respect your child as much as I respect you. I have to love your child as much as I love you and respect your child. Now, sometimes you would have relationships where what you were saying, the baby mama, baby daddy thing, would throw like how to say rocks in the relationship through the child. Make a child find ways to, disrespect you or whatever the case may be. Um, your relationship is with a mother. Your, with the child mother. My relationship will be with the child mother. So we have to grow together and find a way for this to avoid this problem. Because I love you. I want to be with you. I love getting to know you, and we're going to grow. That's the whole point of the relationship. The relationship and the child. Because the child can find their own relationship at some point, somewhere, run away, go do their own thing. The relationship is with a person. So it all comes down to understanding respect for me in that aspect where this blended thing will work. I myself got 3 kids, and I would say 4 as well because my stepdaughter, me and her mom broke up or whatever. But that's still my child. It's not my child, my child. I'm not her father, but I'm a father figure to her because I was there with her for 7 years. We good. We talk all the time, see each other all the time, laugh, joke. If she's going through something, we still talk. We have no problems. I have no problem knowing my kids' moms. Um, yeah, we good. My aspect, my view on it, I don't try and throw no stones nowhere. The relationship was a relationship. It ended, but the children, them, we all there. We won. We's family. No matter how you want to twist it or turn it, that's my viewpoint on it.
But Ranji, you and you've mentioned this before that all of them get along. But is that something that you made known that that's what you wanted and that's why it works? Or is it that you were just lucky that everybody kind of is on one accord
Um,
or both?
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
no
"Please."
personal, yeah. Okay. So at the beginning, how it came about Rocky
Mm.
because of my person. I could say that. Um, but all in all, my children are my children. So you're gonna skip all of the whatever happened. My children are my children. So I don't care how anybody feels because my children are my children and my children going to know each other and my children gonna spend time together. And if you want to fight, no problem. We gonna fight. We gonna argue. We want to cuss, no problem. I'm going to corner. We gonna cuss. The children need to know that we cussing. But my children gonna be together. We're gonna do things together. We're gonna do whatever. Whatever it is whatever. We's family. At the end of the day, this is your family. If you end up in a hospital, you could turn to your sister or your brother for blood or whatever the case may be. I have to know each other. If I dead, whatever I leave behind, gotta go to all you. You all, sorry. You all for the American. You all.
But
But
let me
yeah,
ask you a question. But in terms of you like pursuing a new relationship or their moms, pursuing a new relationship, is that a conversation you all have, um, or it just somehow works out?
I don't have to have no conversation with nobody.
Okay.
My conversation do not need to be with the significant other. My conversation is with them.
Right. That's what I mean.
So I'm happy for you. You're moving on. So I'm not even upset that you're moving on. Whatever you do, your thing. You do your thing. You have life to live. Um, Whoever you pick up, that person need to respect my child. Don't put your hands on my child. Simple. But if okay, let's say I have a young child, I have a 4-year-old that, let's say her mom run into they in the store walking together and the child run out of the store and he run after the child, catch the child before the child run cross the street. Beat the child, not beat the child, but clap the child and let the child know they're wrong. I ain't gonna get upset for that because that's awareness. I mean to say that's protection for me, you know. But yeah, I ain't have a problem with nobody. I would congratulate. I greet them like normal. My stepdaughter's father, I good with he. I see all the thing. He live. My panel. We have a good relationship with potential daughter. So we good. I have no problems. Peace.
Well, that's good. I think, but I also I say that
Peace of mind. I just need to be
who you
comfortable.
are.
I just need
That
to be
that
comfortable.
says a lot about the type of, to me, and that's what I mean, like how a man is with his kids, how he is with his ex, how he is in relationship with other people, especially the people close to him. That tells me a lot about the person themselves, you
Yeah.
know. So that's where my original theory was coming from, and it still stands,
Yeah,
right?
it's nice. That's real. And
Mhm.
that's what it is. You just know who somebody is based off how they handle other people. Like
Right.
if I deal with start to date a girl and she's disrespectful with her moms or whatever, like or like rude with people, I sorry, but I can't be there because that's bad energy for me. So that's I
Right.
already understand. If I see how you take care of your kids, for instance, if it doesn't align with my views on life, like we can't be together.
It's
So
wait, let me tell you something. It's funny. It's not funny, but it's interesting that you say that because I had reached out to Shelly and asked her some of the questions that I asked you guys. And that was actually one of the first things that she said is that you have to assess the what she said, the compatibility of how you all parent and how you all are with your kids. And he's not on tonight, and I don't think he'd be upset if I say something, but that was one of the issues that Randy had in a previous relationship because the person that he was in a relationship with, they got along together fine when it was just the two of them. But she had 3 boys, and he felt that he knows how he raised his kids and how he was raised, and they were not being raised the same way. But he felt like he needed to step in. Um, I'm sure it caused problems, but that was actually one of the first things that Shelly said is that you really need to assess how that person parents, and if you all align, because right there, if it doesn't, it's not the same, it is going to definitely impact the relationship. Go ahead,
So I
Phyllis.
want to
definitely,
say something about that. Um, I mean, obviously, coming from the Caribbean, the way I parent is totally different than the way Brad parents. I believe
Right.
in whooping my children's tail. I say what I want to say. I do what I want to do. I mean, that's just how I brought you in this world, and I'll take you out. That's the way I was raised. That's the way I. I mean, that's just it is what it is. Where
Yeah.
if
just for the FBI, just for the FBI, it's just words. It's just words. We don't.
they're grown now, so
They're grown now.
It's just words.
whereas, I mean, he's never spanked his children before. He doesn't ever raise his voice. He doesn't. There's a lot of things that he doesn't do. But the and this is not the right word to use, but the control or the level of respect that his children gave to him with the way he parented compared to the way I knew I had parented in the past, because of course my children were older, it was very surprising to me. But the relationship that we had, the compatibility that we had, I was able to learn, right? And to he was able to learn from me because there were some things that he was dealing with as well with, the older one. And I was able to learn from him as well as, dealing with my son, who was just like, I mean, still is a wild child. So, but that compatibility allowed us to kind of meld our parenting ways. Me doing the things that I wouldn't have normally done, and vice versa. That created a dynamic union between the two of us, so that all four children are supported in the way that they need to be supported.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Someone named Morvell said, "Hi, Felicia, miss you."
Hi,
When
But
you started, sorry, Pinky, one second. When you started dating, and this was also something that Shelly talked about. How soon after you met Brad or started talking to Brad did you, like, even not necessarily introduce your kids, but because your kids were older, but decide to like tell them that you're in a serious relationship? I mean, was it from the onset, or was it as you saw the relationship going along?
Well, my daughter is 28 now, so even when I started dating Brad, I mean, from the onset, she, no surprise, right? I had her very young, so we kind of grew up together. So yeah, she was in the know from the very beginning, right? So she knew from the she thought Brad was going to be a serial killer and I was going to die because I met him online. So there was a lot of conversation and build up with that relationship. My son, Brad met my son. I guess it was maybe a year into our relationship, but that's because my son was in high school in India, so he was in school internationally, and they had spoken on the phone. But that his graduation, I think that was the first time that they were actually together. And then when Ty came back from India, he moved. We were already living together, and he moved in with us. But that's not really significant because my kids are older. For his youngest daughter, I think it was like maybe it was even 6 months before. No, let me not lie. I think we met at 4 months, but she had no clue. She was little, 5, 6. She had no clue that I was Daddy's girlfriend. We socialized together, and I was Daddy's friend, and we built a relationship together. And then 2 months later, her father was like, "Oh yeah, that's my girlfriend." She was like, "Felicia's your girlfriend?" So,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
It was about the same for me as well, I could say.
Hmm.
Last relationship. Yeah. I doesn't I prefer not to meet no kids until you know the direction you're going with the person.
Hmm.
Because I don't know, it's not nice for me. I don't like it.
Hmm.
Because at the same time too, once the kids get involved, for me, you just automatically fall into a loop where you're building a relationship with the kids. Like, not that you deal with them, playing with them, but they're hearing mommy talk about this person. And if mommy, this person have a bad day, they see mommy vex. Not vex with the person because that person made mommy vex or whatever the case may be. Like, I want me to turn to we know what we doing. If we good. And if you got kids and we just situation shipping, is no friend Ryan coming across, no friend Ranchi, but no. No. I ring your phone. No, I deal with the children. Okay, I'll call you back later. Bloop, I love the phone.
Mm.
That's
But
how
you
I am.
free, you link me. Then we thing. But I don't like the involvement of kids when
I
you know where
wanted
you
to
have a
I,
direction.
I wanted to say two things. What Debbie had talked about with Randy, I think it's a false belief to believe that you and another person will raise your children with the same belief, unless you and them come in the relationship and I discussed that before children was involved. Like, when me and Vincent, we got together, we had no kids. What is the goal? And even in those circumstances, we did not raise our kids the same way. We had similar beliefs, but at the end of the day, his behavior, the way he raised kids and the way I raised kids was very different. And I had to learn and accept the fact that my way wasn't the only way and my way wasn't the right way. So I think in a relationship to believe, oh man, you're gonna believe the same things. If you do, I say congratulations, and I'm glad that that's the situation in your relationship. But again, children need to know that the wall is not like that, and everybody don't have the same beliefs. And you're going to walk wall, you're going to school. to have variety is not a bad thing. To have differences is not a bad thing. And we need to get to that understanding, right? Of course, there was things that I had to learn that again that I didn't have all the answers and my way wasn't the right way, right? And he had to learn the same thing too. That's the one thing I wanted to address because you had said Randy, you know,
Mhm.
and Felicia, I'm glad you addressed that because you coming from two different, and what's the
Cultures.
chances that you're not
Right.
going to come from two different cultures?
Right.
We could both be raised in St. Croix, right? Our whole entire life. But that
Absolutely.
don't means that we have the same culture, right?
Right.
Because our parents come from different places. And that's what we bring into our relationship. So that's the first thing I wanted to address. The second thing, I like where Ranchi and you guys said. I don't know. I didn't have the experience, and my kids were adults by the time I consider started dating, and by the time it actually happened, I guess this old man and woman. So but the thing is, for me, because my kids is older, and like you said, Felicia, I get my kids young, and our relationship is not like that. I talk to my kids. My kids give me advice because I am not up in this modern dating online. Like I would not do the date. My daughter, my oldest daughter, like I can't do nothing without her permission because she ain't want me do no online dating because she's like, Ma, you don't know what you're doing. These people out here is a mess. And she is so right. And one time I was talking to somebody for a short time and she sit me down and she schooled me and she gave me advice. And I was like, you know what? This relationship isn't for me based on the advice my daughter gave me. So for me, from the onset, because I don't want, not that I need their advice and stuff like that, but we do have the relationship where we have that dialogue where we talk. If I talking to somebody, my kids know about them from the onset. From the onset. It don't have to be serious. It don't have to be a relationship where it's romantic or headed in that way or marriage. Like this is gradual things. So I don't want to bring them in, oh, we getting engaged. No, I want you to know, want you to be familiar with the person, stuff like that, because if this eventually, I don't care if it's a year, 2 years, 10 years, this person gonna be in my life. I want my kids to know who this person is. And I want their feedback on the individual. So you know, if my kids, if they meet some,
Well,
Age makes a huge difference. I'm assuming Ranchi's children are not as old as our kids.
no,
I
no,
know
his kids is the babies.
yeah, I would say
This
for
is
me,
true.
my daughter is 6. I started here and there trying to have relationships with people, but ain't nobody know, ain't nobody meet Ariana. And if somebody got a chance to see her, but she didn't see them because she was asleep. I don't I don't even, if she up, I ain't talking on the phone with them. No, sir. Because I feel like I'm still in a place of where I am trying to protect her and actually weed out the people who is actually a great fit for me, who will be around her or not. This world is scary. But what I
Right.
want to say is that her father did have a relationship where she was around them, and it was what I would say about me and his co-parenting relationship. We have a great co-parenting relationship. It came a long way, but whenever it came to making a decision for her, we see eye to eye. Your honey over there can't tell you what to tell me. We make the decisions for Ariana, me and him. So she was around that, but like what we had made, the decision we had made was to let her, like when she would go visit them, she would stay at her grandmother's house. She actually did not stay in the same house with her father and his girlfriend when she would go out there. And a lot of that too was like Ariana's accustomed to being at her grandmother's house from the time she was born when she would go out there. And two, she don't want to leave her cousin them by her grandmother's house and go stay with her father. Ain't got no kids over there. So she would be like, "Hey, dad, come pick me up." And then I'm ready to go to bed. Daddy, take me home, like to his mom's house. And that's just how we did it, you know? So it was a working process. To the person that he was with was older than us. So I was like, lady, like no disrespect, but we we not in the same age. We talking about somebody 15 years our senior. I was uncomfortable talking with her, you know? I was uncomfortable because even though somebody is older than you, that don't make them more mature than you know? And I had an experience where we was in a public place and the individual spoke to my daughter. I never knew who the person was. We was in public and I get a bye, Ariana. And then I said, Ariana, who is that? Oh, that's my daddy girlfriend. Boy, that blow me. That blow me.
Why not blow you up?
That blow me because number one, in a situation like that, we had never meet. I didn't know who you were. So obviously you felt comfortable having a conversation with my daughter because you had been around my daughter without my knowledge. But you
Right.
can't speak to my child of 3, 4 in
Mm,
public. To me, be a grown woman. Hey, so my name is so and so. You
right.
know, if I even if I didn't feel comfortable meeting you, because at that time I ain't gonna lie, I was like,
So it
nah.
wasn't it wasn't approachable
But
then.
it wasn't that I wasn't approachable because we was in public. We was like taking pictures with Santa Claus and stuff like that. And we sitting to the table waiting
No,
for
but not
our
not
food.
not in that exact moment, but
It
prior to
was
that.
it was
No, it
never that I
wasn't.
wasn't approachable. I think what happens is, we're culturally different. Me, if it was the shoe on the other foot, I would have never spoke to that child in front of her mother. And not knowing that I did not meet the mother, I would have never did
Okay.
that.
So
But then, in that case, Imani, then
if the tables was turned, no, in a sense, whereas
I would have
you
walked
did.
up to her and I would have
No,
said,
but
hey, introduce
if you
myself.
don't want the mother to know that situation, you will pass the child straight. You would have prefer her pass the child straight and then have the child calling
The
out to
thing
her.
about it is it was done in a slick manner. Saying the child was like playing with the phone. She wasn't looking up. And then all you hear is bye Ariana. And the child look up and realize what happened. The child I would be different if the child if she Ariana actually was engaged with her. She wasn't.
but Imani, and I get everything that you're saying, but at the point that she was around Ariana, wasn't that Ariana's father's responsibility to make sure at least you all knew who each other were?
But the thing about it was my thing with that situation, I would, I said, you know what, and we talked about it a year later because we talked about that a year later. I would have been more accepting of you because we was in public saying, hey,
Right. I
my
get it.
name is so and so.
That's what I would have said
I
too.
What
Right.
was done was slick,
Mhm.
and I
And
don't
the
deal
and
with
the thing
slick on
was,
side stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, it was the dad's responsibility,
Mhm.
yes, right? But he failed, right? He failed on
Yeah,
that end. From woman to woman, I see what she's saying, because if
Right.
my kids are older, so
Mhm.
it's different. And then the individual, the lady was older too and had her own kids. And it's like the appropriate, like
Right.
you can be engaged with my young daughter or my young son. I
mhm.
think you should address me at some point before you're engaged in relationship with them like that. So
Or,
Mhm.
that's
or
my
not
thing.
address the child at all.
Yeah,
Either
that's why I was.
address me as
Right,
the parent or,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was done
right,
in a sly manner, and I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? Okay, and at this point, I was like, you know what? Before I before I do a earthquake tornado up in this place, let me jump on a plane and move back to St. Croix real quick because we was already in the moving process. I said, you know what? I ain't gonna even make it bigger than what it is. I'm about to graduate in like 15 days with my master's degree. I'm not about to be playing with these people because they playing with me, because I really felt disrespected. I really did, you
Okay,
know.
well, we need to let her go because that happened years ago. And you still
It
look
did.
like you're
It
So
upset
did.
by it.
you and your child
You
father
still
had
look
a
like
relationship with a
look
boy?
like you're upset
We
by that.
no. It's not like upset, but I'm just thinking back. We had a decent relationship because everything we did, every decision we made, even at that point, we did it with we made the decision with each other. It
So
was
you
all
knew he had
the other
somebody then.
things, huh?
You knew he had somebody at the time.
We knew of it, but it was some other things that I don't want to talk about that made me feel the way
Yeah,
I
yeah, we
feel, you
could
know?
tell. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
it wasn't even and I would point out there, it wasn't even like love him, I wanted to be with him. We had got to a place where we was like, this ain't working. We just need to do whatever we're doing for our child. This ain't working, and we were making a shift to be like separated. But
but,
that
but but the thing is that is a dynamic that do occur
mm-hmm,
in these relationships because whatever, even if you agree or you got emotions,
Well,
it
you
got
got
other,
history. You got
it got
history.
other, it got
You're now
history.
co-parenting, and now you're bringing other people with
Into
their
the mix.
own stuff
Mhm.
into the situation.
Exactly, and then
So,
you have to deal with other people and other people's behavior and
true.
how to handle it. So these is all relevant
mm-hmm.
dynamics that were happening in the relationship. I
Yes.
see Sharianne asked the
Yeah.
question that
She said, so would you not continue a relationship if your children don't like that individual just because they may not have any problem with the individual? They just may not want their mom and dad to move on. I can attest to that. Like I said, my two younger ones, and they weren't like little. My youngest at the time was in 12th grade, getting ready to go to college. And my son was 4 years older than her. Okay. So they weren't young. And they knew I had made that decision that it's time for me to put myself back out there. And they were in their feelings. Did it
so
sometimes
yeah,
now. So for me, it's my time. Like I am still your mom. I will always be here. I'm going to try and make the best decisions that I can. But at the end of the day, I don't control your life and
Right.
you're not going to control mine. I
Right.
listened to a thing that Steve Harvey said. He said that when he and his current wife decided that they were going to get married, they had like a family trip with her kids and his kids, 7 of them. And they sat them down and they said, let's let you guys know that we are going to get married. The kids went out to like bowl or something like that. And when they came back, 4 of them came back and said, we decided that y'all shouldn't. And 3
how
of them,
old was these kids?
I don't know how old they were at that time. But they weren't small.
They were
They
grown.
were teenage and up.
Mm-hmm.
And the three of the boys came back and they were like, hey, do whatever makes you all happy, right? And he sat them down. He said, let me tell you something. We're getting married.
Mhm.
We love each other. And y'all can join on the love train or do what you got to do. But you all are not in relationships. You all are not married. And you all are not going to make a decision for us. So
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the things that Shelly has said is that, of course, when you're going to start to date, or it gets to a point where you're going to get married, you do need to sit the kids down and you do need to have a conversation. But again, he didn't have little kids. They weren't little.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like I said, my youngest at that time was in 12th grade going to college. I wasn't bringing anybody around them, right? There was a time where I introduced them, but it wasn't like we all went out together and that kind of stuff, but so that they could know who it is that their mother is seeing. And we had conversations about it, but really and truly, they didn't really have a reason for why they were against. They didn't know the person. You know what I'm saying? And so what could you say? They didn't want me with their dad. So that wasn't the issue. I'm sure. And like I said, it was over time I realized, especially for those two, it was a protection thing. They didn't want their mom in a situation with somebody and have to wonder about like it was a protection, and especially my son.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, but I made the decision that at the end of the day, I'm going to, because like everybody said, when they move on, then I'm by myself and y'all having your own fun and doing your own thing and making your own forevers. And
Plus,
your mother's,
I think
you're okay with your mom being by herself?
yeah, I think it's important that we teach by example, right? And it may not be the lesson that the young adult wants to receive at the moment, but
Moment.
being able to show them by example that it is possible to move on, to be happy, that there are such things as second chances, that people can be happy with other people, that life does go on. They don't have to be stay stagnated, especially for us who are from a place that is so small, where we know so many people personally, family, etc., that stay
Correct.
in relationships that are unhealthy while they are unhappy just because,
Because
so I
exactly.
think it's
And
very important.
But the thing that I want to add, and everything I say, I totally agree. But this is what I wanted to add. Like, I standing in the position as a parent, to answer Sharian's question, no. And it all depends on what the situation is. But no, not because they are your kids, right? And at the end of the day, we might teach our kids not to do certain things, they still do it, right? We have to know that they are kids. But I gonna say this about our kids. We're parents. And as parents, we have to understand too our kids and the situation. So for me and my kids, and there was a lot going on why I didn't move on, but a part of it was my kids, because not only me, not I wasn't the only one needed healing from the past relationship. My kids also needed healing from the relationship. And my
right.
kids also needed to adjust to a new concept, because if all their life, all they knew was me and their father, that's what they know. That's the structure that they only understood. I knew for me to just put them in another situation because of my own selfish need was not me being a parent and a good parent to my kids at the time. Not saying that that is relatable to anybody else's situation. As again, I'm going to always say, every relationship is an individual relationship. And what works for one person may not necessarily work for the next, or it may, but we can't say. I just saying in my situation, what my kids was experiencing, they were dealing with a lot of illnesses and a lot of different things. For me, as a parent, I had to stand in the position of a parent. And that's what I'm saying. In these blended relationships, in these relationships where we're moving on, we have to acknowledge not just what we want and what we feel, because as a parent, I'm going to be a parent for the rest of my life. So yes, my children come along with me, but I know I'm an individual also, right? I'm an individual. I have needs just like they have needs. And again, it's not a codependent relationship where they're going to dictate my life, nor am I going to dictate theirs. Because the relationship we have, I may not always be in agreement with the choices they make, but I always tell my children, well, this is how I stand in this position. I will be honest with you. The decision is yours at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how our dynamic is in our relationship, what I give to you is what I expect you to give back to me. Just like I stand in and I could give you your space to make your mistakes or whatever it may be, I expect the same thing back from you. And again, at the end of the day, I gonna make the decision and I gonna do whatever I feel is best. I'm not gonna let my kids, because there's children. I mean, they do try to give you some advice, and sometimes you could use it, sometimes it's not. I mean, Imani to be giving me advice sometimes. I don't always listen. Sometimes I listen, sometimes I don't. Again, because I realize the wall we live in is more their wall. And maybe not. I mean, if I was a part of the wall all along, I would have understood a lot of things, but I wasn't. So But to answer Sherry Ann's question, no, they can't make them kind of decisions for me.
Well,
But
the reason why she said that though is she said some people, especially women, I guess she knows women who would not date because their children don't want them to, and she feels like that's crazy.
and that's what I addressed it, a codependent relationship, right? We have to have healthy relationship. When we have relationships where mothers or fathers want to be involved in the children them adult relationship and the children them involved, this is not healthy relationships. Okay. When our grown children and we don't want them to be with this person and we there in the middle and we fight it with that, this is not healthy relationships. At the end of the day, everybody gonna make mistakes and whatever. And we have to be willing as parents to stand in the gap and be like, hey, my 1 year old gonna try to walk and gonna fall down. It's life. They gotta fall. It's a part of learning. It's the same thing with a relationship. Huh?
I was saying like that's a lot of it like based off of parenting. A lot of parents like to involve young children in adult things. My prior years back, when you see big people together, you find yourself somewhere in some corner, you go do something with
Exactly.
yourself. You do not be included in big people conversation. Nowadays, I would say I've seen it with mothers a lot. They would have their kids just be around because they must know because this is the real world. Um, they're going to find out at a point in their life when they at appropriate age for it. But for me, at 12 years old, at 13, 14, 15 years old, you don't need to be included in an adult conversation. You see big
That's
people
right.
sitting there and you're supposed to find your way over there. That's why you see people grow up and they have their children into the relationship and all that because
But you don't
it's
even need to be you don't need to be 20 and be in people relationships either. Yeah, but
try.
you don't need to be 20. You don't cross a line. You're being disrespectful. You 20 and you and your mate having a conversation and they're in the middle of it. Like again, we gotta talk healthy relationships, Not because you're a grown person, you 30, you got the right to be interfering in
That's
me
based
and
off of
my
principles. That's based off of principles that a child needs to learn from small. If the child don't learn that, of course they're gonna see them getting on that way. A lot of children that you see, I say children, adults that you see getting into the parents and relationship is because they were never taught to stay out of big people thing when they were small.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that foundation set in your roots that hey, mommy going through some stuff. Listen, moms, listen, how you do your thing, but I just meanwhile you're fighting. I go do our thing. You move, you find your corner because at the end of the day, a child gonna be how to say they're going to be on the defense for their parents. They see mommy getting attacked, they see daddy getting attacked, they want to jump in, they want to defend.
You
but,
know
but,
what?
but now that's another situation because if your parents getting attacked, like that's a different thing.
Yeah, exactly. But
You know
it
what?
need to be recognized where it's a discussion. Two adults having an argument or whatever that ain't going to that stage. That you
You
need to
want
sit
you
through.
you know one thing that I realized because Auntie could attest to this because my daughter, no, she, it's we trying to figure out this thing. She don't interject, and I'd be like, yo, like when I was your age, like my mother them used to kill me. We just had that conversation today, right, Auntie?
Yeah, and we call her Briss, just like
Yeah,
Karen. I was like, you
right.
always Briss,
But
Briss.
But what happened too is, a lot of times me and her father, somewhat in the beginning, probably like traumatized her a little bit with like arguing and stuff. Like she was exposed to certain things. I would never. I don't know where this child decide to do this, but April 1st, 2021, I was dropping her off, and I remember the date so well. I was meeting her to drop her off with her father. And I get to the halfway point is an hour away, and he's still at home. So I'm mad. I cussing. I was like, dang, like I didn't even pay attention that this child in the car with me. And I cussing, I exposing she to me being mad at her father. You know what Ariana do? She take her iPad, she records me and tells me, Mommy, I just want you to know that you just talking to me. And don't talk about my daddy like that. My daddy is a nice man. Recording me now. Ariana go for spring break, 10 days, come back. As soon as she come back home, Mommy, guess what? Now, either thinking she coming to bring me melee. The child come and show me the way in which I was talking to her father crazy on the phone and cussing her father. And I was like, oh my God. Like that put me in check. Like let me tell you, like somebody else would have probably like beat you down because what are you doing that for? Blah 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 blah, you know. But what made this girl, she was 5, record me to show me how I was reacting to her father, and then 10 days later, make sure she come back and show me that.
But
That
that was
that day, from that day, that changed our co-parenting relationship. From that day.
well, sometimes people need a wake up call, and there's
Mhm.
not a better wake up call than hearing yourself or seeing yourself.
That was a wake-up call. I
In
drive
the
in
news.
and mommy, you only talking to me, okay? You only talking to me. I was like, wow. So you know,
Um, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just saying that to say, like, you know, I understand. I do try and I be like, look, girl, this is adult conversation. But sometimes her response, I might be like, dang, girl, like,
But
you
that is, I think, also a product of the world that we live in today, right?
Mhm.
Things are a lot different.
But I also think we're talking about something a little bit different. I don't think Imani is sitting down having conversations with Ariana about her father and his
Oh,
other
no.
relationships,
Right.
etc. Children are going to be exposed and they're going to hear things. They need to, right? It's just like when our parents used to say, you know, about playing in the dark, oh, you know, you keep you from getting sick or whatever the case may be. I'm just saying
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
exposure is a little bit different. What Ranchi is saying is a young parent, well, I'm saying young because I don't think he's referring to seasoned parents like myself, but sitting there having a conversation with their child
About
about a situation, which is a little bit different than what Imani is.
And these things happen. I
Oh
was
yeah,
watching I was watching a video today, and the child was in the room. The mother was caught, and they were fully clothed, but the baby daddy caught the mom in the bed with her enemy. There was dress, okay, but they were fighting, and the children was exposed to this, right? And so I mean, I guilty. I've exposed my children to just like Imani, fighting, and maybe whatever. But my belief was, and I still am the belief. I never wanted to paint this a perfect image for my children, because to me, when I had looked at my counterparts, I said, see, now they don't think their parents have perfect relationships, and then when they go to college and they get divorced, or they get, then they don't want to kill themselves because they had no one. They thought that their parents' them relationships were perfect, and then they get slapped with the reality that they weren't. They get a divorce, they can't handle it, right? We've seen cases where children cannot handle parents breaking up or whatever, right? So I did not want to ever portray a perfect image for my children, and to think, oh, mommy and daddy perfect, and at the end of the day, but then again, I would probably just take it too far, but by exposing them to too many fights. But I say that to say, again, we have to be parents. We have to stand in the gap and know that we have to navigate these situations at all time. Parenting is not when they're little, because as an adult, like I think it was Marvel, she explained a situation where a person was disrespectful to her. And when they were disrespectful, yeah, it was her. And her son waited until the person left, and he intervened, and he told her, well, I don't like how the person talked to you. That is not being out of place, and that's what I'm saying. Like, no, kids do not get to decide what we are, who we're gonna be with, or whatever. But if your children come to you, and they tell you, mom or dad, like, you don't see how she treating you or how he treating you. I don't think we should just disregard everything they say because it's children, is what I'm saying.
I won't say a disregarding it
agree.
in that situation, but that's a different type of
No,
situation.
me talking about what you were saying.
I'm talking you and the girl sitting down, you your friends sitting down, adults, having discussions and conversations about man and whatever, sex and whatever, and you got a child there, a
Interesting.
9-year-old there, or a 12-year-old there listening in. Yes,
Mhm.
they're gonna be exposed to the real world. Yes, they're going to be, how to say, part. They're gonna have their own relationships. You don't want to paint a perfect relationship, but I'm just saying is that restraint is a real thing. Even if I
It's not called restraint. It's called being appropriate.
well,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you don't need to snap off the top because something just happened, I go say, you know what? We gonna talk about this now. I
Yeah.
might just come to you and say we're gonna talk about this later. We gotta go for a drive or something. You're gonna go have an argument or somewhere else. But I'm just saying, around your kids, around your children, that's not the environment for them.
And
Right.
a lot of children are being exposed.
I find the society we're growing up in right now, or where we're living in right now, I can't say growing up in, we're living in right now, allowing people to feel that it's appropriate enough for you to just blow off the top. Don't hold nothing in, just go off. You get insulted, you feel a type of way, go off. Snap. Do a Will Smith. I just find that kind of behavior is wrong because it takes away from the principle what
But
you
that is a culture that we are encouraging today, right? Like we watching these a lot of these reality TVs and all these shows, and it's like, and if you watch certain things like they popping off and they telling off, and people will be like, "You were right," like you said, a Will Smith thing, and people believe like, "Oh yeah, it was okay, yeah," So me telling I ain't okay. Everybody have their own opinion. All I simply saying is we live in a culture where we encouraging these kind of behavior, and these children, yes, are being exposed to things they have no business being exposed to. And again, even with my adult children, I don't want them wrapped up in my life because I ain't too wrapped up in their life.
Yeah, she don't go and hide. She don't go and hide.
you know,
Go and hide to have a conversation.
who don't go hide to have the conversation?
You don't lock yourself up.
I don't lock myself up because you don't open the door and come in. Like I just go by myself in the rooms like a talk in peace. Like and you don't be listening.
but I think things for older kids with your parents dating, I don't think it's much of a thing that your children involved in your life. I mean, they should be involved. They could give you advice. They're living too. They're adults. They're seeing the world as you seeing it today. Whatever you're experiencing in this day and age, they experiencing the same thing. So for me, it's like, when you would say,
When you say the same
like,
thing, what you mean, Ranchi?
Oh,
same
we've
thing.
experienced stuff that you ain't experienced because we
Yeah, like
don't.
you guys are living in the same
Yeah.
period now, so it's the same things you seeing that they seeing. They're witnessing it the same way, they sharing the same emotions towards something.
You know, when we
Um,
explaining something to you that you'd be like, "Why me now?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, auntie, yeah."
all right, you make me lose a day. It's slipping,
No.
but we're gonna come back though.
Sorry,
But
sorry.
When it comes back, let us know. But Sherry Ann said, so when do you
that was
introduce your
right.
child or children to the new partner or serious relationship? And how do you or not tell your child or children's other parent about the new partner?
Me not. I ain't reached there
How
yet.
was that for you, Felicia?
Um, like I said, my daughter was involved from the very beginning. And I mean, my son knew I was seeing somebody. He knew that this person was going to be coming to India to see him graduate and spend time and whatnot. I mean, it's just so different because they were older. I told them this. It wasn't up for discussion. You know,
Right.
my daughter she wanted me to move on and find somebody. She was just concerned about the whole you know online dating, and she kept saying, "Oh, you don't know any better. You're too old. You don't know about dating in these times."
Yeah, that's what my daughter tell me. She was
Right.
right though. She was totally right. Me ain't know nothing about them thing.
Right. So,
But
yeah, I think it's a little different for me than for Imani and Ranchi, who have smaller children. I mean,
Right.
how do you, and like I said, with Brad's daughter, we just kind of, I participated in things, we went to fairs, we did all these things. She had no clue that we were dating. I mean, she really didn't until, we were like, okay, now tell her something.
Yeah, I remember now. I was saying that like your older kids are like your parents when you were small, saying, you know what, I know you're going out, but just tell me who you're going with so I know you're safe. I'll know
Yeah.
where to
Right.
find you in case of
Right.
anything. So
Right.
it's just like
Right.
a conscious thing, you know, you're just living together, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Just tell me what it is. Okay, now do
Mhm.
your thing. So I know in
Right.
case of anything, I know who to
Mhm.
contact. I know who
We
to
the
Mhm.
go to.
we the wingman
That's
and
it.
woman now, right, Auntie?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
like
So
it's just obvious that depending on your child's age,
Mhm.
is definitely going to dictate how you expose them. I see somebody
Mhm.
just wrote that. Um, and how soon. And again, whether or not this is just a dating thing or this is something that is going to build, also will depend.
Mhm.
I don't think I had like a time. And again, my kids were big. Um, so I introduced them in different ways, but it was never really like I didn't push anybody on them because
Mhm.
it was dating, hoping to build, but it was dating.
Mhm.
So I just think you have to figure that out for yourself, and knowing your kids, um who can handle whatever information at what time and who can't, and being cognizant of them, because at the end of the day, they are part of you.
Mhm.
They might be a part of this relationship. So you just have to kind of figure that out, for yourself.
I
Um,
think though, I I heard an echo.
yeah, because
Mhm.
you, wait, give me 1 second. You came on twice. Go ahead. Oh,
What
okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I was just going to add to that
Mm,
anytime the mate, if you dating somebody, anytime that person is going to be, especially when your kids are underage,
Mhm.
if they're going to be around your children, or if they're going to be, or your child, man or woman, if they're going to be in your home at any point and around your children, it is the appropriate time to talk to the parent about this person you have around your child. It's like what Imani had explained. The Ari was around this woman and she had no idea. The woman was having conversation with her and she had no idea. To me, to answer the question, Sherian, to me, the time would be when your children is underage, that anytime this other person is going to be around your young child, baby mother and baby father need to know about it before they start to interact with your child. Have
but
to
again,
really be in the presence.
that's true. And I totally agree with you. But that's saying that you and your ex have a decent relationship, because I think that's also going to dictate it, because how you navigate that. Because if you don't have a good relationship with that person, yeah, you let them know, but you don't necessarily have to go into detail.
Mhm.
You just let them know that your child might possibly be around XYZ. But I think it's also really going to depend how that relationship is with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brad didn't have that.
Just say something before you say something, Felicia. Brad just said exposing your kids to a healthy relationship is more important than ever after a bad marriage or relationship. So
Mhm. Yeah.
mhm.
we just
Teach.
gotta, how many times do you all hear me say intentional? We just really gotta be intentional, and not just
Absolutely.
about ourselves, but our kids, because at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, you are their first teacher. And
Mhm.
especially if you came from a really bad situation or bad situations,
Mhm.
you do have to be very careful, because I've seen people, they have kids and they're in relationship after relationship after relationship, and they're introducing their kids to these people. You know,
Immediately.
what are you really saying, and
Mhm.
teaching them? You got people calling people certain names, like, pet names or whatever. And it's like, what are you teaching your children when you're doing that? So we do really have to be intentional, especially when they're young.
the uncle just make me laugh. Oh, God, you just said something, man.
And the thing about it, you don't know what's the healthy relationship. So how do you come to that conclusion? And when do you come to that conclusion? Because I don't think nobody ever enters any relationship with the concept that it's not going to be healthy. You
No,
have to figure out
when
over
someone
a period of time.
Sit and Pinky. You have to bring it out at a point where you're able to bring that person around your people.
Say that again, Ranchi.
When you're able to bring that person around your people is when I believe it would be at that point where you could start saying, okay, let me introduce them to my kids.
Yeah, I
And
agree. It's not
At
just
that
you that
stage,
determines
you're reaching to that stage, where kids is next. Because you just always bring around your friends and your family 1st.
Mhm.
The
I,
first one you find out.
I'm
And then
happy that you
afterwards,
said that, because the reason why I say that is I felt, as far as like, I didn't want to meet the person's significant other, because I was like, well, if you ain't bringing this woman around your mother, who is me?
Mhm.
Like, I value, like, when you have a good relationship with your mom, I would think that you would bring this relationship around your mother and father first before you interject me and Ariana. So I was like, no, you ain't want to bring them around your mother. I good. I gonna stay over here.
But then, but Imani, you have your child though. That's
But
being
you know what? I
thing.
had trust. I would say it like this. I had trust in Jason to make sure that I believe that we made decisions together. I said, you know what? I'm gonna trust that you're gonna make sure our child gonna be in the safest environment when she's with you.
Mhm.
Even though I didn't want to meet the individual, and Auntie was like, you need to meet them. You need to meet them. And I was like, no. I said, I'm going to give him the opportunity to make sure. And I knew that he was going to create a safe space for Ariana. I had no doubt about that. But I let them do that. I was like, nah, I good. I took a different approach. I was like, no, I don't have to be involved in that, because if I felt if they wasn't coming around your family, like, who is me?
Yeah, but it's not you and that person becoming friend. It, like I said, your child is underaged and is going to be, you yourself needs to see who this person is. I mean,
True.
if nothing else, you need to feel the energy you get from this person. And again, it's not about being friendly with them, but it's about knowing who your child is going to be around.
They was gonna do it regardless if I was yeah or nay. So I was like, you know what?
that's right.
I trust that you gonna do whatever you're gonna do to make sure you protect our daughter. And I left it like that. That's the
Because
approach I took.
Yeah.
but at the end of the
That
day,
gets back to being careful who you have children
even
with.
though even though you meet somebody, even though
Who you
he
telling?
introduces you to this person, that doesn't mean that the child is safe. That doesn't mean that everything
Mhm.
is all what to say, a bed of roses.
You know what I did?
You
I
have to
prayed
always
a
put your faith
covering
and trust that
over
the
my
decisions
child.
that your child father or your child mother make is right for your child. Because at the end of the
I
day,
I
you
prayed
want
a
to protect
covering.
the child.
I prayed a covering over my child, because at the end of the day, what I wanted to feed my child, and I tell them I didn't want my child to eat, they were doing what they want to do. So I stopped stressing myself out about trying to have those kind of controls when she's not with me. When she's not with me, I cannot control what they do. Now, if something they know, they would of course not want anything to happen to Ariana, because Ariana is a part of them, and I'm fortunate that they are good people too, they're good
Mhm.
people too, and they really valued making sure that she was okay. But I came to a point where I just had to say, you know what, I fighting a losing battle. You make sure that you protect her while she's with you. And when she's with me, I protect her. And that's the way I choose to do it. And I
I
pray
agree with that.
cover,
I
because
agree.
I wasn't doing it. It took too much out of me to try to control what they were doing when she was
Yeah,
going
I
to a
agree with that.
Brad just said, I think it's Brad. Yeah, said,
Right.
I agree. My youngest kid was the last person to meet Felicia.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It really is a difference with age.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Felicia, like, that's the step before this.
Mhm.
But what you said was like on the money. know who
But
you're
it's
getting
but
these
it's
kids with, right?
yeah.
Because we live in a culture. I mean, it's before, like that's not this show, because this show is after the kids and
Right,
the second relationships, right?
right.
But if we want to step back into time,
Mhm,
and this is what I tell my kids today.
mhm,
We live in a culture where everybody, let's just sleep and have fun and just let's satisfy and gratify
mhm,
the flesh. But at the end of the day, you
mhm,
make babies with certain people, then you're all crazy, then they're this, then narcissistic. Think about it beforehand,
right.
because
Mhm.
Um, that's true. Halima said, I've never met any of the people my child's father was with. I trusted he would not put her in a dangerous situation, but I did ask her how she felt around the person
Right,
and addressed any issues with her dad.
right.
Yeah, I would agree with Halima. That's exactly
Yes,
how we
absolutely.
handle it. And I think I did a good job at doing that. I
Mhm,
trusted him because one time he was like, "What happened? You don't trust me?" Of course, he didn't say it like that because he's American, but he was like, "You don't trust me?" And I was like, at first, I was giving him a smart answer like, "Dog, no." But then I had to really sit down and think like the person who I had my child with, you know, I do trust him. We just ain't work out because we didn't work out and it's okay. But I wouldn't trade the relationship my daughter had with her dad, the relationship she had with her grandmother. I wouldn't trade it for the world because you know why? It got single. Like people used to see me all the time on the weekends. I was baby free because she with them. And I wouldn't trade that relationship that I have with him and them for the world because I could have been a baby mother with no, and I don't even call myself I'm a single woman with a child. There's a difference.
mhm,
I would not, you know, I could have been one of them who didn't have no support, didn't have nothing. Like I went out this weekend, what I do? I went and dropped the child to her grandmother's house and we had fun. I could have not had that support. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah, we didn't work out. We were young, we saw different things culturally different. One thing about cultural differences in relationships, I compare it to like interracial relationships. It's a difference. You have to learn the other person culture. They gotta be willing to learn your culture, just like you have to learn the interracial relationship. You have to learn about each other's identity. It's the same thing. And I was
right.
like, you know it was rough. So I
mhm,
was like, but I wouldn't trade him being her father for the world. No, I
mhm,
won't.
Even again, even if we come from the same culture, right? You still got to learn each other and you still got a
mhm,
respect, right? Because I find that we from the Caribbean, we think that we our way is the right way and the only way. And it isn't. You know what I mean? We don't beat this, we do that. Okay, I hear you, but that don't mean it's the right thing. I mean saying it wrong either. All I just saying is at the end of the day, we from the Caribbean. I
mhm.
don't think nothing after me, but you could because you ain't gonna hit me. I damn a house. Um, we the best cook, we the best parents, right? You know
We
how we
are,
is.
we
Uh-huh.
are, we are,
See,
we are.
But I mean, but Pinky, and it's true what you're saying, because I mean, culturally, how many people used to say they didn't believe I was born? No, well, I wasn't born because I was born in Puerto Rico, but I wasn't raised in the Virgin Islands because of how my mom raised us. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
yeah, you can come from the same culture and still be brought up very
I
different.
don't tell you, you in Crucian and you was raised in St. Croix your whole
Yeah,
life.
my
And
whole
I
life.
could bust out some Crucian word for you don't even know what I'm talking about. And we were raised in St. Croix, the state,
Right,
yeah, like,
Mhm.
right.
yeah, I could bust out a word and she'd be like, I never heard that word before. Like, the other day I telling Gigi, every minute I tell Gigi, Harippa. She's like, I never heard that word. I said, how you don't know what Harippa for? Your mother is Crucian, everybody's Crucian. How you don't know what Harippa is? See, Debbie, my cup of fish, she have no idea what Harippa is.
No.
Harippa is banana fritters, old fashioned way.
Oh,
My
okay.
grandmother used to say Harippa.
Heard of that.
I just learned that the other day, but I won't.
Well, you young, so yeah. And who we ask?
Banana fritter.
So who we ask? We ask my sister who older, right? When we want to know old information, we don't go to my older sister. We'd be like, well, she know all the old people stuff, right? Because she the oldest one. But
So
we
it's true.
raised in the same culture, and we have differences.
Yeah, that's true. But again, when it comes to this topic, and again, I guess because I was married and in a relationship, in that relationship for so long, that was not, well, let me not say that. My mom, when she got divorced, had always said she would never bring anybody in the house while we were still in, nobody around while we were still in the house. So I think when I got divorced, that kind of was in my head, you know. So I knew that I wasn't necessarily going to bring anybody in my home just because I didn't feel comfortable, and I had 3 girls. I mean, not to say something couldn't happen to my son, but I was reluctant about that. But I just think that when we are entering into relationships, we just have to be intentional. We can't just go into things frivolously. We really have to think about the long term, and the ramification it has, not only for ourselves but our children, our families, even our finances, because we didn't get into that. But that's also another thing, because when you do decide that you're going to be in this relationship, somebody's paying child support, somebody has these expenses, that's another conversation that needs to be had as well, because that is something that could create problems later on. So I just say have the conversation.
And I think it's very important to have, right? Because if you got 3 baby mamas and you got child support in all these different locations, you know, what is your, sorry, Ranchi. I'm sorry. Sorry, Ranchi. If you got 6 baby mamas, and your money gonna be split up a lot of different ways. And
but it's not even just that. It's not even just that, because I met someone, it wasn't anything, but I met someone, we are friends to this day, and this person had 8 children, 8 different mothers.
Wow.
One was still in high school. They were all grown, right? But he was still paying back child support. Those kind of things can have an effect if you decide that you want to get married and you're commingling funds, you want to do things, and now
student loans.
And student loans as well.
My doctoral loans are up the wazoo. But one other thing I wanted to say before you end the night, another thing that I want to say that I think is very important as it relates to relationships and moving on and children, is to make sure that you establish a good relationship with yourself before you even take on a relationship with somebody else, and then are expected to take on a relationship with their children or have your children take on a relationship with them. That space and that time where you get to know yourself and you are able to handle yourself and your own issues is critical before you'll ever be successful in any other relationship, and detrimental for your kids and the other person's children.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So whatever caused the breakup or whatever the reason is, address those things. Have the conversation with your children, and you know, we talk about when to bring people, like when do you tell. For me, I told my kids it was a whole year before I actually, you know, I was like, okay, I ready. My kids again were adults. My kids, I told them, I said, okay, I'm ready to start dating. What do you think? And my sons, of course, the sons are always the last to jump on board. But I didn't even know anybody at the time. I wasn't dating at the time. I didn't even have a prospect at the time. I wasn't online dating. I wasn't doing anything. My mind was made up first, because you gotta make your mind up first. This is the next step. I made my mind up. Okay, it's time for me to move on. And I asked my kids, and I said, how do you feel about that? My older son, of course, which is understandable, again, standing in the gap for your children. All he know was a relationship with me and his dad. You know what I mean? And in that time, I spoke to him. We had conversations about it, and I prepared him. For that next move. And at the time, he was 20 something years old. But I still, you know, I didn't just not acknowledge his feelings or his position on it. And I just prepared him gradually. And to the point where, you know, he was like, Mom, whatever you want to do, I'm going to support you. and I still didn't have anybody. I still wasn't, like online dating or anything, but the prep work was done for when that move or when that happened. So I'm saying there is ways in which we have to do things. I'm not saying that way would work for everybody, because again, my kids is adults. And our situation is unique to us. But for years, and I prepared them, but especially the oldest one, it took him the longest. And I don't think he's still ready, because when I say certain things, he'd be like, oh, okay, mom. But he respect his mom. He respect my position and whatever I want to do in life. And he want the best for me like I want the best for him. And that's all we can ask for at the end of the day. That's the adult side, when your children are adults. When your children are younger, it's a totally different ballgame.
Amen.
Well, as you know, our time is up. It really goes by fast. But I definitely want to thank everybody who was engaged, asking questions, putting points out there, because again, this is vital if we are creating healthy relationships for ourselves, for our children, for our families, and inevitably for a romantic relationship. So thank you again, Ranchi. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Imani, for coming in on this discussion. Like I said, this is just having the discussion because it gives you a viewpoint or a vantage point you didn't even think about. And Sherry-Ann said, great discussion. Thank you as well, Sherry-Ann, for engaging on our YouTube. I want to tell everybody, please be safe. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Good night. Thank you, Debbie.
You do?
Thank you for all the comments and everyone who participated tonight. Thank you. Good night.